Hong Kong's new national security law is hundreds of pages long. But to understand why it's so worrying to so many, we only have to pick out a few key words, and you'll get the idea. You'll see why a country that to many Westerners looks like this had so many people willing to do this.
We will become more prosperous, more safe, more secure going forward. And this legislation is good for everybody, for the country and for the entire community of Hong Kong.
So just to back up a second, this text is brand new, drafted and then rushed, according to the UN, through Hong Kong's Legislative Council by a government propped up and handpicked by Beijing. The fear is that this is one more nail in the coffin for Hong Kongers who are eternally struggling to maintain distance from mainland China. This, they say, is a potential threat to the whole idea of one country, two systems. The notion that in communist China, Hong Kong is different, that it should be allowed to operate with a freer hand.
This was always for an audience of one and to show loyalty to the Beijing government. The timing, the necessity, the rationale, and it's all based because of what Xi Jinping and the Beijing authorities are dictating.
It's transformed Hong Kong from a liberal, rule of law based society that protects freedoms to a kind of national security state. And with a very hardline policies on speaking out.
These pages, full of laws set to take effect this Saturday, bring Hong Kong more in line with the kind of draconian measures we see in the rest of China under Xi Jinping. It outlines what constitutes treason, insurrection, theft of state secrets, sabotage, and what it calls external influence, which is about collaborating with outsiders. And the most serious crimes have the most serious penalties, life in prison. One of the first things to raise alarm bells is this definition of national security. It includes the usual references to the state's sovereignty, unity, and territorial integrity, for example, but also broadens the idea of protecting national security to include tackling threats to social development. Now, that's a bit different, right, from how we more typically interpret threats to national security. Preventing terrorism, war, cyber attacks, even environmental damage. But social development security, that's pretty broad.
Maybe a book, maybe an article of clothing that has protest meanings or slogans. Every email that is sent from an office location in Hong Kong to anywhere in the world could now be scrutinized in a way that has never been done before.
And that's not to say social unrest is never a national security issue. Organized crime, ethnic tensions, extremism. You could probably file all of those things, at least partly, under social issues. But when disruptions to the social order are considered an actionable national security threat, then we could really be talking about almost anything. Certainly anything that compromises Beijing's vision of what a secure China actually looks like.
There was a big debate actually leading up to the passing of the Article 23 about, in the Catholic Church, if confession would be covered under this national security definition. And they have purposely said it so that it's so vague. A priest, a teacher, a social worker, and a doctor would have to consider their action under Article 23, even though it is not directly related to the law.
Page 57. They define what constitutes a state secret. A secret concerning major policy decisions on affairs of China. Okay. A secret concerning the construction of national defense of China. Okay. A secret concerning diplomatic or foreign affairs activities of China. Okay, once again. But then a secret concerning the economic or social development of China. There's that word again, social. The question becomes, what constitutes a social state secret?
It's not about foreign countries attacking them, but rather it's about internal opposition. So it's a very broad concept, including almost all of social life.
The way they define sedition is equally broad. Western governments typically think of sedition as inciting people to rebel against the government. And sedition is a crime in China, but they see it differently. This new law defines seditious intention as an intention to bring a Chinese citizen into hatred, contempt, or disaffection against the following system or institution. And then it goes on to list several government entities, including just straight up the state established by the Constitution of the People's Republic of China. So we're not talking about the extreme act of overthrowing government. We're talking about anything bringing about hatred, contempt, or disaffection. These are feelings, emotions. Disaffection is the lack of affection. And if a Hong Kong citizen seeks to stir that emotion, that kind of unrest, that, observers worry, could be construed as seditious intent.
For me, I describe it as sort of like the criminalizing of feelings and intent, right? That they are now saying that any action that could be interpreted as intended to discredit, to criticize, to in their words, sabotage the government are now a criminal offense.
And possessing seditious materials, flyers, pamphlets, books, the law says that's punishable by up to 3 years in prison. Police would also have the right to search any premises to seize and destroy these materials. Hong Kong's Legislative Council, packed with Beijing loyalists, argues that there is a rising threat of foreign spying. Hong Kong's leader has called out the CIA and MI6 specifically, alleging barbaric and gross interference, all of which justifies this new law. There's a whole section here about external interference endangering national security, and it talks about any person who collaborates with an external force to do an act, punishable by up to 14 years in prison. But what's an external force? It could be a foreign government, a foreign political party, but it could also be something as broad as an international organization. So let's say you're a business in Hong Kong and you do business with companies all over the world, maybe even crown corporations, where the line between private business and government work is a little more blurry. Are your business partners external forces?
What they've done is they've made it very risky for anyone in Hong Kong to have foreign contacts at all. There's no question about it that companies doing business worldwide are going to face concerns that maybe they're accused of being a foreign influence.
Hong Kong is such a beautiful place for doing business and traveling into Hong Kong. So if they don't come, if they don't do business here, they miss their chances.
For a place seen globally as a financial hub of the world, the threat of interference from Beijing could make a very stable part of the business world less so. And consider how the now very pro-Beijing Hong Kong government talks about its own recent history. Hong Kong has been a bridgehead for anti-China activities. It accuses external forces of causing social instability and propagating anti-China ideology. There's even a whole section about grooming of Hong Kong agents by external forces. It seems to call out international NGOs, those seeking to undermine national security under guises such as so-called fighting for rights and monitoring of human rights.
The real threat they're seeing is that Chinese people in general, and Hong Kong people in particular, will import liberal ideas, these sort of rule of law, free speech, all of that, because the mainland regime has read the political economy literature. They know that when a country develops, people will eventually demand the rule of law and basic freedoms.
To be clear, the examples that we've gone through are just a few of many. We can't cover them all. But Hopefully you get a sense of what about this legislation worries those who think this is yet more evidence of Beijing encroaching on Hong Kong's autonomy. By this weekend, it will be the law of the land and could have a deeply chilling effect on Hong Kong's people, its civil servants, its journalists, its entrepreneurs, its academics. Anyone who walks that fine yet very blurry line between what in China is tolerable and what is punishable.